Local church, what a gift it is to be here. As Pastor Abe said, my name is Filmore. You've probably never met anyone named Filmore, but there's 3 Filmores in my family, so I'm the 3rd Filmore. And my wife likes to think I'm the most good looking, but I don't know, is it up for debate, maybe not? I just want to say at the outset, I love your church. I love your pastors. Pastors Abe and Crystal are world class. As he said, they've inspired, hopefully we've been a little inspiration, but more than any inspiration we've received from you guys. I send all of you guys social media and all of your website stuff to our church. My team is probably getting tired of hearing about local, but it's a testament that God is not only moving in San Diego, he is inspiring a new church plant in Seattle. So could you give it up for your pastors Abe and Crystal? And I do come from Seattle, so consider me your chocolate cousin from up north. You know what I'm saying? I like your Alabama. Is that Alabama on your shirt? Roll Tide, let's do it. So I know recently we just talked about relationships, and I'm not going to harbor too much on it, but at the start of this, I would love to maybe begin this conversation mentioning the relationship in your life that impacts every other relationship. And of course, I'm talking about the relationship you have with yourself. There you go. Siri is just, I love it. Has anyone ever noticed that you bring you everywhere you go? Have you noticed that? I bring me on vacation. I bring me to the grocery store. I bring me into my marriage, and I also bring me to you. I bring my healthy me. I bring my unhealthy me. I bring my secure me, my insecure me. And here's what happens if I'm being honest, and maybe you can relate to this if you're being honest. Sometimes what I think is a you problem is actually just a me problem. And if we're not careful, we can sit in a service like this under a great atmosphere, under great preaching and teaching, and we can leave service thinking about how a message applies to everyone else but me. The problem with that is that it fails to consider, get this, that the first relationship that Jesus wants to transform in your life is a relationship you have with yourself. It's the first relationship. Jesus wants to transform your relationship with your pride. He wants to transform the relationship that you have with your anger. Anybody can relate to that? Me? Okay. I got some anger problems. I'm from Detroit, so we gangster out there, all right? Your relationship to your pride, to your anger. But I actually want to talk to you today about the relationship that you have with your self-worth. How do we live with a healthy identity? And here's what I know. At the end of this, what I'm praying, what I'm hoping for, what I'm believing, what I'm expecting is that you would leave here with a healthy relationship with yourself. Because if you have a healthy relationship with yourself, you have a healthy relationship to your future. See, so much of us, when we come into a space like this, we see ourselves through our brokenness, through our pain, through what has or hasn't happened at the start of 2025. It's month 3 already, and you're like, man, I thought I'd be more lit by then. But I'm praying that you would see yourself, come on, not through your pain, your brokenness, your past, but you would see yourself how God sees you. And in John chapter 1, we get a little insight into this, and it says this: the next day, John was there again with 2 of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God." When the 2 disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, "What do you want?" They said, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" "Come," he replied, "and you will see." So they went and saw where he was staying, and they spent that day with him. It was about 4 p.m. Okay, so we're about to read 3 verses right here, 40 to 42, and these are going to be really important for us for the rest of this conversation we're about to have. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. Now, if you're taking notes right now, I just want you to highlight Simon Peter's brother. Just highlight that, circle it. I'm trying to think of what else you can do. I don't know. He was one of the 2 who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah." And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You'll be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. If you're taking notes, and I know that you are, because if you want a red carpet entry into heaven, it's probably a good idea to take notes. Bad joke. Some of you like, I don't like this guy already. If you're taking notes, the title of this conversation is "It's Okay to Be Andrew." It's okay to be Andrew. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll believe that. Father, thank you for these people. Thank you for your children that you love so much in this room. And we give you all the glory and honor for what you will do. Open up our hearts. We didn't come to hear from a man. We came to hear from Jesus. So Jesus, speak to us, transform us, change us. And everyone said? Amen. And everyone said? Amen. Hey, one of the things I love about marriage is that your wins become your spouse's wins. And one of the things that my wonderful wife here, Caitlin, Korean beauty, she loves to tell people when we're out, like one of her favorite party tricks, she loves to tell people that when I was 11 years old, I was rated the #1 basketball player in the state of Michigan. Let's go, baby. The truth is, I also peaked at 11. And I know that doesn't surprise some of you because you're like, you're 5'8", bro. Come on, like, how far did you think you could go? But I did go on to get a Division II scholarship for basketball, and that might be impressive to some of you, but it wasn't impressive to me at the time because I actually had friends that I grew up with who I was better than at one point in my life, actually would go on to play at higher Division I institutions. They had games on Saturday mornings on ESPN. I had games with 50 people showed up. And the reason I tell you that is because it was my failed or perceived failed career that really formed my relationship to myself. My sense of worth, my sense of identity, my sense of value, how I saw myself was predicated on how well I played or how well I didn't play. When I played well, you better believe I walked around that campus like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Holler at your boy. But when I did not play well, I wanted to disappear. I believed the lie that I was only as good or only as valuable as my last game. And maybe for you, it isn't basketball. Maybe you believe the lie you're only as good as how much your boss recognizes you. You're only as good as how far you get in your career. You're only as good as who receives you or who perceives you. But that changed for me, or my relationship to myself changed in the summer of 2011, because here's what happened. I met Jesus. And when I met Jesus, I realized that I was known and I was valued, not for what I could do, but who I was to him. You see, what changed me, yes, of course, I knew Jesus. That's amazing. Come on, I love that. If you're here today and you know Jesus, it's a great start. But I think what changed me most wasn't necessarily that I knew him, no, but that he knew me. He knew me not for what I could do or what I could produce. No, he knew me for who I was to him. And I love this in John chapter 1, verse 12. It says this, "But all who did receive him, he gave them the right to be children of God." For all who received Christ, he gave them the right to become children of God. As if to say, when you receive Jesus, here's what you also do. You receive a secure identity. You receive a secure way to perceive yourself. You receive a new identity, a new worth. And this matters because your identity usually informs your activity. And so much of us, so much of our life, so much of how we see ourselves, so much of how we live, our dreams, our aspirations are informed by the words that were spoken or not spoken to us. So much of our identity is actually shaped what people have said about us, the names that maybe you've been given by others. But I got some good news. Jesus gives you a new name today. In fact, I'm thinking about a story in the Gospels of a woman who was suffering from a condition for about 12 years. She went to doctor after doctor, and it says she didn't get better, she got worse. But then one day she hears about Jesus. Oh, I love that. What are you hearing about Jesus? And then she pushed through this crowd, and then she began to kind of push through the crowd. It's really crowded, you know. It's like a Justin Bieber concert, or Taylor Swift. Any Swifties? I don't know. Okay, wrong crowd. Seattle, that joke would have went really well. She pushed through the crowd. She touched the hem of the garment, and Jesus turns around, and she's healed in a moment. And here's what you got to understand. The only time Jesus uses these words, he turns around, and he calls her daughter. Now, for some of you, you might think that's not significant, but what you need to understand is that she would have actually had another label and another name over her life, and it would have been unclean. Every time she would have went outside, she would have been reminded not only just of her condition, but of the words that people have spoken over her. But here's the good news. Jesus comes and flips any label that you've been given. Jesus comes into your life, and he gives you a new name. He knows you. John chapter 10, verse 3 says this: he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. He calls his own sheep by name. Have you ever met one of your heroes? Anybody ever met one of their heroes? Okay, 2 people maybe. That's okay. I'm a pastor, so sometimes some of my heroes are other pastors. You might think that's cringe, but it's my story. It's my authentic self, And one day, I was at a conference, and it was like during the little meet and greet moment like we just had, and, I saw one of the pastors that I really look up to, and, this is my chance, guys. Meet and greet moment, he was 2 feet away. Let's do it. Okay, I'm really nervous, I'm shaking, and, I go shake his hand, and introduce myself, and tell him my name, and even before I could get to him and say my name, he stops me, he says, "Filmore, I know who you are." Whew. You better believe, man, I perked up in that moment. And I was like, glory to God. I felt so known, I felt so seen, I felt so valued. And here's the thing, all of us have someone that if we saw, that we looked up to, and they knew our name, those words would shape us. They would change us. And I'm just trying to let you know that there's someone better that knows your name. He's called the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the star breather, the creator of heaven and earth. He knows your name, and he knows you intimately and personally. And here's the good news. He knows everything about you, but yet he loves you completely. He loves you fully. And here you're saying, what does this have to do with a guy named Andrew? Okay? What does this have to do with anything by a guy named Andrew? Well, let me tell you, because here's the reality. You might be named and known by God, but the unfortunate reality of earth is you might not always be named and known by others. And the question you all have to ask yourself, and the question I have to ask myself is, how will my soul be sustained when I'm not named and known by others? What will happen when the influence fades? Now, I know some of you lit, you're like, I'm an entrepreneur, my business is booming. I don't know what you're talking about. Here's the thing. Everybody has a point in their life, and I'm not trying to prophesy or be doom and gloom, but life changes, things happen. You guys following me? But what will you do when you go through seasons of change where your name isn't as popular? Maybe some of you right now, you feel like you're like me, I'm a millennial. I grew up in America, and we were told millennials, we can be anything we want to be. And you believe that, and I pray that you will, and now you're in a job you hate. And you had this aspiration that you have a certain recognition by now, but you don't have it. But here's the good news. If there's anyone who knows what it's like, I'm going to call to the stand my boy Andrew. Because here's the reality. We don't know much about Andrew, but what we do know about him, it speaks volumes. Okay, so the Bible is 66 books. That means that it's a lot of verses. I don't know how many verses in the Bible, but there's a lot of them. Our boy Andrew gets 12. In 12 of the times that he's mentioned, 8 of those times, you know what he's referenced as? Peter's brother. I got 12 mentions in the Bible, and 8 of the times I'm referred to in association to my brother. Man, what must it have been like for him at like social gatherings and dinner parties? You know what I mean? Like he's the snap finger disciple. It's like they're at a party and everybody's like, yo, I know James and John, but you must be Peter's brother. Right? Like and what I find fascinating too is like, this is crazy, right? So I like to ask questions when I read my Bible. So I'm trying to think about it like, at face value. Because if you read Peter isn't even mentioned before John chapter 1:35. So he's like John's like introducing this passage, and he's saying, hey, Andrew, Peter's brother. And if you're reading this for the first time and you don't really know anything about church, and maybe some of you are here today and you're like, yo, who's Peter? Like, it's cool that Andrew has a brother, but who is Peter? Now, what you got to understand is that John was written about 30 years after the death of Peter. So Peter's legacy, it would have been well known by now. People would have understood that he was the one that walked on water. He was the one that preached the first sermon. He was part of like the in crowd. Like he would go on field trips with Jesus up on mountains and stuff. Everybody would have known about Peter. But some 20, 30 years after Andrew had not been here, he was long forgotten. And he's saying, you don't need any introduction to Peter, but you might need some introduction to Andrew. And Peter's not only just known in church history and Jewish history, Peter's also lit in world history. Right now, if you were to visit Rome and Vatican City, you would actually see one of the biggest churches ever built. It took 100 years to build this church, St. Peter's Basilica, to honor Peter's name, his recognition, his influence. Every year, millions of people visit Rome to see this church, pray prayers. They ask for forgiveness. They take pictures. And at the top of the dome, there's this passage from Matthew 16, verse 18. And here's what it reads. It says, on this rock, Peter, I will build my church, and the gates of hell won't prevail. At the top of the dome, Peter's name, he's known, he's recognized, he's influential. But I just like to think maybe there's another verse that deserves to be up there. And it's in John chapter 1, verse 41 through 42. And it says this, the first thing that Andrew did was find his brother Simon and tell him, we have found the Messiah. And he brought him to Jesus. I think John 1 should be up there. You know why? Because there would not be any recognition, fame, and influence of Peter if there wasn't any hidden act of faithfulness of Andrew. There wouldn't be any recognition of Peter if there wasn't any obedience of Andrew. And I like to think, man, why is this story in there, right? Like, why do you even include these 7 or 8 verses about Andrew? Like, because if you read the rest of John, it's not like this even matters. Seemingly, all the themes and big ideas of John can continue on. It seems inconsequential. Why is this in there? Well, it's in there because here's the reality. Most of us resonate more with the hiddenness of Andrew than we do the fame of Peter. And here's what you got to understand. You don't need to have visibility to have a lasting impact. You don't need to have a visibility to have a lasting impact. History may not remember your name, but here's the thing. Your faithfulness can be felt in eternity. And I actually think most of the things that change the world and most of the people in this room that are changing San Diego, it's actually the things that go overlooked that actually have the most impact. The fact that there are people here early that were setting out chairs and setting up the amazing coffee space, and people all week have been praying and inviting, and people have been faithfully giving. It's the things that are overlooked that actually make the most impact. It's not just the big aha moments. It's not just the big wow moments. It's the little hidden moments. You know what I also love about Andrew? Who remembers the story of the fishes and the loaves? Anyone know that story? You know who found the lunch? It was Andrew. Andrew's behind all these little moments, and it's so inspiring for me. You know why it's so inspiring? Because the world tries to tell me that I have to be recognized to be impactful. But no, here's the good news. You don't need recognition from the world. No, in the kingdom, you can still be impactful because history might not remember your name, but through your obedience, can I tell you, history will remember your miracles. It will remember the miracles that you are a part of. Did you know that local is a miracle? And there will continue to be miracles, not because your name will be in lights, no, because you have a hidden faithfulness. And what you got to understand, Peter was not brought to Jesus because some powerful sermon, man. Peter wasn't brought to Jesus because some AHA conference. You know what? Peter was brought to Jesus because of an invitation from his brother. And it says it was the first thing that Andrew did, which lets me know here. Can I tell you something? This is what this lets me know. That you might not necessarily be a seasoned saint or experienced, but here's the thing. You don't need to be following Jesus long to be effective in your faith. You don't need a PhD in theology. You don't need to know all the Bible front and back. All you need to do is commit to being faithful. And I love it. It says he told Peter simply that I found the Messiah. I found the one, Father Abraham and many sons. And in Jewish school, we learned about this Messiah was going to come. Like, I found him, that one. I found him. And he's changed me. He's transformed me. And if you want to know how you can just share your testimony as an aside, just tell people what you found in Jesus. I found hope in Jesus. I found peace in Jesus. I found worth in Jesus. I found identity in Jesus. And I hear some of you're saying, you know what? Well, I don't have much of a testimony because I've been going to church all my life. And my testimony is lame. I talk to people all the time and they're like, my testimony is lame, man. I've been in church all my life. And you think that the fact that Jesus has sustained you your whole life, you think that's lame? I'm a millennial. They say we don't even follow Jesus no more. And you're here today and you're 27 or 28 and you're still following Jesus. And you think somehow you don't got a testimony? No, we don't just celebrate God's delivering power. Come on, we celebrate God's sustaining power. That God is a sustainer. Tell people what you found. Now, back to Andrew. Let's get back to regularly scheduled programming, if that's okay. I find it a little comical that Andrew was one of the first people to follow Jesus, okay? So there's probably been some 7 to 8 billion people that are Christians since this first moment, okay? So I'm from Seattle. We got the home of the first Starbucks. Any Starbucks lovers? There's good coffee here. You guys shouldn't like Starbucks. And we got this little tourist attraction. It's called Pike Place. There you go. Yeah. It's got the OG, the first. And every single day, if you were to go to Pike Place right now, you're going to see line around the corner to get coffee from Starbucks. People take photos of Starbucks. And here's what gets me, y'all. Here's what gets me. A 2-minute walk away is another Starbucks with no line. But yet, there's something about the first that we deem valuable, monumental, influential. But yet, my boy Andrew, he don't got a book in the Bible. There's never even any recollection of him coming and getting a meeting with Jesus, like, yo, knocking on Jesus' door at his office, like, yo. You know, I was one of the first. I was here first before local was like so cool. And I was setting out the chairs first. And I was the first to be generous. But like, why didn't you pick me to go on the mountain field trip, Jesus? There's no record of that. Because here's what I think people that change the world understand. Being recognized by others is not the same as being rewarded by God. And I'm not saying recognition is wrong. I'm not saying influence is wrong. Here's what I am saying. I can't control it. I can't control how influential our church will be. I can't control how recognized I will be. I am a dreamer. I'm an aspirations. I know in a room like this of creatives and future world changers, you are ambitious. You want to see God do something powerful. You want to do something powerful. But here's what I want to let you know. We can't control how influential we will be, but what we can control is our impact. What we can control is our faithfulness. And so often we spend so much of our life worrying about something that we can't control anyway. Because here's what you got to understand. God elevates. God exalts. God elevates and uplifts, and being recognized is not the same as being rewarded. And here's what this means. My goal for why I do what I do might need to change. Because when I'm unhealthy, part of my motive even for preaching can be miscued. Because what I can do is I can use this microphone to get from you what I already have freely in Jesus. And I'm trying to get you to recognize me. I'm trying to get you to affirm me. But really, my goal should not be recognition. No, my goal should be faithfulness. And here's what we got to understand. Okay, I'm going to speak to myself because I don't really know y'all that well. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to I'm a new guest. I want to be invited back, okay? So, I don't want any emails going to Pastor Abe and Crystal. But here's the reality. So often, we rather appear good than actually be good. The scriptures say in the last days, there will be this appearance of godliness. And because of social media, we can want to appear good because we like the recognition that appearance gives us. Post the Bible verse. Ain't even applied that verse ever a day in your life. But yeah, you post it because you know it's going to give you an appearance. And here's why. It's because we validate the approval of others over the approval of God. Okay, so I got married into a Korean family, and the keys can come. I got married into a Korean family, and it's amazing. I learned a lot. Actually, we fought like the first year of our marriage because there's so much differences. Any biracial or interracial multi-ethnic marriages, it's normal if you guys are fighting. I just wanted to just normalize that, okay? You're like, why do we fight? It's because y'all are from different, okay, anyway. But one of the things I learned was there's this culture of honor, respect. So one of the key figures in her house, or her home, in her family, was her grandfather. He went on to be with the Lord about 3 years ago. One thing I loved was like anytime there was a family gathering, when Grandpa was speaking, you better believe everybody was dialed in, listening. You're playing Fortnite, you come from downstairs, you come and you listen. And when Grandpa left, he got up, he walked to the door. No matter what you were doing, you got up and you walked Grandpa out to the door. Some of you are like, that's normal. We didn't do that in my family, okay? And what I learned is that there was a weightiness to his words and there was a weightiness to his presence. So therefore, when he spoke, things shifted and changed, and we were transformed by his words because of the honor and the value and the treasure that we placed on the one who was saying it. Why am I saying this? It's because here's what you got to understand. If you want to be changed by what I'm saying, if you want the revelation that you are not what you do, you are not what people have spoken about you. No, you are what God says about you. To change you from the inside out, we have to treasure his words, his presence over the words and presence of others. You'll begin to see a shift. And you know this to be true even practically, right? You ever got complimented on your outfit by someone who has zero style? You know where I'm going with this? You're like, bro, you like my fit? Cool, but like, I would never wear that, so that's not really, doesn't mean much to me. You know what I mean? But then, someone with swag, they go to you and they're like, yo, whoo, those balloon pants you wearing, oversized, I like that. It shifts something because of who's bringing it. And what I'm trying to tell you, the most valuable person that had ever walked the face of the earth, the most credible, the most beautiful, the most wonderful, the most majestic, the most glorious, he has words that he wants to speak to you. You know, I was thinking about this scripture recently. It says that you have been bought with a price. You know, we've been Spending some time with Pastor Abe this morning. He was talking about how San Diego is one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive city in America. But can I tell you something? The most expensive real estate in the city of San Diego is not out there. It's actually in here. It's your heart. You know why? Because it was bought with the most powerful, infinite, rich resource, the blood of Jesus. You tell the worth of something by how much someone is willing to pay for it. And the worth of your heart and the worth of your life, there's nothing that can compare to the blood that was spilled on the cross on your behalf. You know why it's okay to be Andrew? Because you might not have recognition from others, but can I tell you, you're seen by God? You know why it's okay to be Andrew? Because the most important thing about you is also the most important thing about Andrew. It's not that you have public recognition. It's not that you're named by others and known. No, it's the fact that you are a child of God and you belong, and nothing can take that away. On your good days, he loves you. On your bad days, he loves you. You are his. And this is meant to change you and transform you from the inside out. When I know my worth and my identity is not up for grabs, you know, success does not inflate me and criticism does not deflate me. Because I know the one who I belong to. Jesus, he went to the cross. That's why any of this matters, by the way. If Jesus didn't go to the cross, die, and resurrect, I'm just doing a TED talk. But if he's alive, then everything I just said has the power to change and transform your future. So he goes to the cross. And the scriptures say he scorned the shame. The cross was a tool of public shaming. I'm saying that to say Jesus died in full view of others. It wasn't hidden. It was fully seen. And why am I saying this? Because that is why you can live in the reality of what I'm saying. Because God is not pleased with you because of what you have done or do in front of others. No, God is pleased with you because of what Jesus did on that cross in view of others. So you stand. I don't feel it. Sometimes you got to preach to your soul. You know who the best preacher to your soul is? You. David says, I bless the Lord, oh my soul. And I just sense this, that some of you need to change the playlist in your head. Your self-talk needs to change. Your internal dialogue needs to change. What you speak about yourself. God wants to give you better words, better thoughts about yourself. It says, as many as the sand on the seashore, so his thoughts are toward you. You having a negative thought? Well, God got better ones for you. And you live in it, and it begins to change you. Transform you. You want this? You want this freedom? You want this joy? You want this security? You have it in Jesus. One last story. Because there was this one time when Jesus and his disciples were out. Jesus sends them out. They come back. And they're coming back and they're hype, y'all. They're hype. They're like, yo, woo, we just went out. We just cast out the demons. We had some ministry success. It was lit. They're joyful. And Jesus turns to them, and this is what he says, y'all. This is what he says. He says, don't rejoice that the demons submit to you. No, rejoice because your name is written in heaven. As if to say, earthly success can be a form of your joy, but the source of your joy has to be the fact that you have a name in heaven that cannot be changed and cannot be taken away. You're written. And here's what you got to understand. If your identity is secure, so too can your joy. I'm a millennial, as I say, and we've made group chats famous. Love a good group chat, don't you? And every now and then, you're just chatting with a friend, and then you're like, bro, you need to meet my other friend. So you add your other friend into the group chat, and then you're having a three-way in the chat. It's like, yo, bro, we gotta all hang out, let's do it, yeah. I'll save your number, girl. What I'm about to attempt to do right now in this moment is add you into a group chat, because me and Jesus have been actually having a conversation about you. So I'm gonna add you into the group chat, and here's why. Because Jesus can tell you far better about what I just said than I can. And it's probably better you hear it from him first. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add you to the group chat if you wanna be in it, and then I'm gonna bounce. And then you and Jesus can continue the conversation. Because here's the thing, you don't need me to tell you about who you are. You need him to tell you about who you are. You don't need a mediator. You don't need a priest. You need direct access. So if you're here today, you're like, you know what, man, I like this idea of having my sins forgiven and being a child of God and this identity that's secure. And man, I want to know it's okay to be Andrew. With every head bowed and every eye closed, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say yes. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm just asking you if you want to be invited into the group chat. So on the count of three, if you say, you know what, I want to know this Jesus, I want to know this identity, just lift your hand, 1, 2, 3, all across this room. Awesome, 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 awesome. So dear Jesus, thank you for these people. Hey, I want everyone to repeat after me. Say, dear Jesus, thank you for choosing me, for saving me. Today, I confess with my mouth and I believe in my heart that you're Lord and you're risen from the grave. Today, I give my life to you forever. Amen. Come on, let's give Jesus some praise.